The night peace of Prime Minister Michael Callow's residence was broken by a sharp ringing of the telephone. Getting out of bed, he picked up the receiver. The conversation was short. The essence of what was happening worried Princess Suzanne, but Michael could not explain anything else, remaining in a state of shock. Soon, his advisors and closest aides gathered in his office. There was tension in the air. A scene unfolded on the screen in front of them that took their breath away. Princess Susanna, known for her noble posture and soft smile, now looked broken. Her face was pale and her eyes were red from crying. She spoke, reading a text dictated to her by someone from behind the frame. The princess reported that she had been kidnapped. It was impossible to determine her whereabouts or the identity of her kidnapper. She stated that her life now depended entirely on one person, the Prime Minister. Everything that was happening looked frighteningly real. Specialists confirmed the authenticity of the video. It was not a fake. However, then the most frightening thing became clear. The conditions set by the kidnapper were not just eccentric, but completely humiliating and unheard of. He demanded that the Prime Minister perform sexual intercourse with a pig live on all federal channels of the country. The absurdity of the demand could have caused laughter, if not for the threat to the life of the princess and the absolute seriousness of the situation. The video has already appeared on the internet, spreading quickly and causing a flurry of public attention. The Prime Minister's situation was desperate. He understood that not only his honor was at stake, but also the fate of a country trapped in morality and cruel reality. At dawn, the young couple, barely awake, stumbled across a video on the internet that had by then gone viral. The morning ritual, a cup of coffee, a quick look at the news, was interrupted by a heated discussion of what had happened. Home Secretary Alex Kearns, realizing that the situation was getting out of control, proposed a backup plan to create a fake video. Special effects specialists were supposed to edit the scene, replacing the face of the porn actor with the face of the Prime Minister. However, this trick was useless. The kidnapper demanded that the entire act be recorded in a continuous frame from a single moving camera. Meanwhile, in hospital lobbies, cafes and other public places, people clung to television screens waiting for details. The breaking news attracted even more viewers, intensifying the public outcry. Crowds forgot their business, dissolving into savoring every detail. In the newsrooms, the hunt for news was on. One journalist wasted no time in contacting her source in the government. By deftly manipulating insinuations and blackmailing him with old photographs, she brought out new details. Editorials were already launching opinion polls. Comments ranged from contempt to sympathy. Most citizens supported the Prime Minister's refusal to comply. The Prime Minister's wife did not like the situation at all. She stormed into the office where another meeting was being held. A voice full of anger and indignation silenced the assembled men. The Prime Minister's wife literally kicked everyone out to speak to her husband alone. She was anxious, anger and fear glittering in her eyes. However, Michael, keeping an outwardly calm face, tried to reassure her. He assured her that the special services were about to find the kidnapper, and this crazy situation would be resolved. But deep down, each of them realized that time was getting shorter and shorter, and the threat was getting closer. Meanwhile, the technicians managed to locate the place where the video had been uploaded. It turned out to be an abandoned campus. Without wasting any time, the Prime Minister ordered a task force to be sent there. While the SWAT team was preparing for the assault, the special effects master was working on creating a fake video on the set. At the same time, a porn actor arrived who was recognized by one of the technicians and, unable to resist, was photographed with him. However, the information leak continued. When the operatives reached the campus, tension was at its peak. The team took up positions, awaiting orders. Meanwhile, a package was delivered to the UKN TV station. Inside were a thumb drive and the princess's severed finger. The video recorded on the thumb drive began with the kidnapper showing the camera the severed finger while the princess, bound, sat motionless. In the government offices, the tension became almost unbearable. The Prime Minister was shaken to the core. Home Secretary Alex Kearns attempted to discuss a contingency plan with him, but news of a leaked photograph of a hired actor dashed hopes of a successful switch. After the publication of the finger video, public opinion changed dramatically. While the majority had earlier supported the Prime Minister's refusal, things were different now. The people insisted on the fulfillment of the conditions. Michael Callow found himself faced with an unbearable choice. Meanwhile, the operatives began to storm the campus. But it turned out to be nothing more than a hoax. While broadcasting live, the journalist made her way to the building, but was wounded during the chaotic actions of the SWAT team. It was 40 minutes before the appointed time. Michael reluctantly agreed. However, Alex Kearns, leaving him no choice, convinced him that refusal would lead to disastrous consequences. Riots, loss of trust and complete isolation, this was only a small list of possible consequences. Meanwhile, in the center of London, journalists were broadcasting. Millions of eyes watched the screens, waiting for the denouement. The whole country held its breath, realizing that the Prime Minister's next move would be decisive. The clock read 8:05. A convoy of cars is rushing through the deserted streets, taking the Prime Minister to the filming location. At the hospital, the staff, like the rest of the citizens, are confident Michael will obey. At 8:34 the press secretary announces the preparations for the broadcast. Before the broadcast, viewers will be asked to refrain from watching and a special nausea-inducing signal will be turned on. However, judging by the atmosphere in the crowded pub, people are not going to miss the event. The upcoming has become the main topic of conversation and the whole country is frozen in anticipation of the denouement. Televisions on all channels are peppered with warnings about the content of the show. But instead of discouraging it, it only fuels viewers' curiosity. Pubs raise their glasses, welcoming the bands. The streets remain deserted, all eyes are on the screens. By 9:29, the Prime Minister, accompanied by armed guards, walks down a long corridor. Michael Callow, gathering all his courage, enters the studio alone. In the middle of the room, under the soft light of the lamps, sits the same pig. It eats from a bowl, unaware of the impending spectacle. The only witnesses in the studio are the cameraman and the sound man. At exactly 9:57, the broadcast begins. Millions of eyes are watching and people in pubs are placing bets. Will he make up his mind? Michael, holding back tears, pulls down the Prime Minister's pants. The jubilant crowd stands still for a moment, but when the process begins, the facial expressions change dramatically. There is no trace of the jubilation left, now the onlookers look on in disgust, some turning away. Meanwhile, in the Prime Minister's bedroom, his wife watches the broadcast in silence. There is a cold emptiness on her face, as if she no longer feels anything. At the same time, Princess Susanna walks slowly across the deserted bridge where cars once honked. Her face expresses confusion and shock. Her wobbly gait betrays weakness. She does not realize what is happening around her. The world has frozen, but for her it has already changed forever. Images from the studio are interspersed with images of the kidnapper. He stands alone in the middle of the room, places a stool and carefully places a skein of rope on it. While millions of television viewers watch the broadcast with the Prime Minister breathlessly, the real villain completes his act. The kidnapper slowly tightens the noose around her neck, his bloody hand with its missing finger trembling in its final moments. At the same time, Princess Susanna, for whose sake the whole drama was planned, lies unconscious on the empty bridge. The broadcast lasts almost an hour. By 11:11, the Prime Minister, having finished the humiliating ceremony, is sobbing in the toilet. There is nothing but emptiness and nausea in his soul that he cannot contain. Alex Kearns, waiting outside his door, gets a call. The princess is found alive, drugged and disoriented but unharmed. Her fingers are in place, and it becomes clear that the severed stump belonged to the kidnapper. Most tragically, the cameras captured her half an hour before the broadcast began, but at that moment no one was paying attention to the streets. Everyone was glued to the screens, watching the humiliation of the Prime Minister. Michael Callow, unaware that the princess had been rescued before the broadcast began, continues to sit on the toilet, defeated, while his wife tries unsuccessfully to call. A year passes. Michael attends a gala event with his wife. He speaks to the students of the school, maintaining a semblance of normality. However, the coldness in their relationship is obvious. Meanwhile, Princess Susanna is expecting a child. Behind the closed doors of their home, she refuses to recognize Michael. Their family, like the rest of the country, will never recover from what happened. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and give the channel a like. See you soon.